Hey guys, it's LoLo with Grateful Gratitude, and I am here today with a very, very good friend and a partner of Grateful Gratitude, Joanne Kahl. And Joanne works daily with our older adults here in our community, and I really wanted to sit down and talk to her today about my concern about how we are forgetting our older adults and where are they at, since she has the pulse. She's on the pulse of that. Where do you think our older adults are? Are they able to interact? Just tell me, Joanne, what's going on out there?
Well, what I see and what I hear and what I research what's going on is our older adults, like all of you know, are very lonely right now. They're either isolating in a community or they're isolating at home alone. And this isolation for anybody is challenging to us mentally and physically, right? But much less those of us that are, in our twilight years that really have a need for a little extra help. So, the other thing is we do hear so much about what's going on in the senior communities. I just saw that 80% of the deaths from COVID have come from people 65 and older, but we're focusing on these senior communities. There's so many of our older adults that are living at home alone and have been alone for 4 months. And what's going on behind these closed doors, and I'm seeing it, is startling. And we need to start paying more attention to those that are aging in place.
Well, and let me just say for the people that don't know about our partnership, is the gratitude hearts that my ministry gives. You and I will, in the past, before all of the pandemic, we would go into these retirement communities, assisted living communities, dementia communities, and actually do a talk on gratitude and how to have some of these groups of people be grateful for what they have instead of maybe taking the other road. And I think we have done maybe 5 to 7, I can't remember, different communities before the doors were locked and they said no more. So I think you and I have been meeting throughout this time very concerned about where are these people getting that love, that uplifting things that they need. And I'm sure the staffs are great, but caregivers are exhausted, I know.
Yeah, they are. And so, that's why I think it's so important for people to understand there's businesses like Home Helpers that are available where we can go in with our caregivers who are all nationally COVID trained caregivers who understand all the CDC protocols to make sure that your loved ones, that there's an eye on your loved ones from time to time. I think a lot of our adult children who are, primarily the ones that for COVID were providing that companionship and that assistance are saying, I'm staying away from my folks. I don't want to be the one to get them infected with COVID. So they're on the phone, or if the older adult, has the technology, they're Skyping or Zooming. But the human contact is what these folks need. And I know all these, these older kids are doing the best they can do, or what they think is the best they can do. But we have never received as many calls as we have recently. People saying, hey, can you go in, check on my parents from time to time, or my mom time to time? But what we're discovering is these folks being alone for 4 months plus, we're walking into their homes and it's not good what we're seeing. It's very, very poor living conditions. And that is not how they were living prior to, because they had people coming in and helping them. So we can do that. Home helpers can go in. However, there's been a couple of cases that have been so extreme. We've talked to the kids, and the kids have had to move their parent out of the home and totally clean the home. Because, what can you do when you're older? I can barely still change the sheets on my bed. So.
Yeah, and no fault to them, because I'm sure it's, has to do with their capabilities, and no fault at all to people. And it's a blessing that you can help with things like that. One of the first things I thought about when everybody went into lockdown, I just can't find a better word for that. So the first thing I thought of is, even though my parents are very active and can care for themselves. I didn't want them out in grocery stores. They're both cancer survivors. I did not want them taking any type of chance, and especially when we didn't know a whole lot about the spread. And the first thing that I started doing was meal prep for them. I started cooking meals and taking them to my parents because I thought, I know they will eat, but I was comforted in knowing they had prepared balanced meals that they had in their fridge and could cook and share. That comforted me. And I didn't know to just recently that you have services like that as well.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. And, you know, there is somewhat of a fine line sometimes between, you know, parents like you have, right? And then those that are just that next step away that do need somebody to help them in preparing the food, having it set up so the only thing they need to do is microwave it. And we do provide that service. And, you know, the beauty is too, we can go do the grocery shopping for you or pick up your click list, and we will disinfect the items before we, you know, put them away and bring them in the house. So there's all those extra steps that we can take to ensure that they have what they need. And it's really a good idea to have an extra set of eyes come in there, because we can see and smell and touch things that when you're just dropping things off on the front door, you're not observing. So it is important to have that touch go in there, but you got to make sure that you understand the CDC guidelines, you understand what you need to do to make sure you're not infecting your loved one. And so those are critical things to know.
Well, I'd like to share something. Since my mom is a survivor, her oncologist did a webinar on cancer and COVID-19. And really, without going through the whole thing of what he talked about, the last thing he said is, I want you to know I deal with current cancer patients, chemotherapy patients, people who have recovered, and I'm going to tell you 3 ways to protect yourself. Now, this is one of the top oncologists at MD Anderson. It's not in the country. And he said, wear a mask, wash your hands frequently, and social distance. And really, to me, if some of these top doctors are saying that, that's where I'm going to go right now. And I think it's very simple to care about humanity and care about others. And I don't want to really get in the mask debate, but I'm just saying that I feel like these guys know. And I know that you told me that you were COVID-19 certified, that you had gone through the whole COVID program with your caregivers and everybody was certified. And, you know, I wonder what percentage do you think of caregivers have been through that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it depends. And, you know, you do have companies that this is their top priority, their top focus, and they are staying, you know, on top of everything. You know, I know our company, we have weekly calls. Sometimes it's twice a week calls because we just want to make sure we are on top of everything. So I think those companies are definitely doing the certification and investing in their caregivers. And really, when you're doing that, you're investing in our community as a whole to make sure that we're taking care of our older adults properly. I'm just so impressed with my caregivers during this time because not all of them work 40 hours. Some might work 30 hours. And at the beginning, I called this caregiver and I said, hey, I have another client and we can get you that extra 10 hours. And they're like, no, Joanne, during COVID, I'm going to stick with this one client. I'm really not going to do anything. I'm going to just go home. I'm going to order my groceries, you know, online. Real professional, passionate attitudes, you know, towards their clients and their jobs. You know, they're going home and taking their clothes off in the garage and showering and making sure they wear clean clothes to work every day. And it's those that, you know, are doing the business right that I'm sure, you know, they're training their people correctly. So
I sure hope and pray. Is there a shortage of caregivers right now?
There is a shortage of what I would call qualified, you know, compassionate professional caregivers. There is, and there's a number of reasons behind it right now. Some don't want to bring COVID back to their families. And so they, even though there's the protocols out there, they're really concerned and they don't want to, you know, just they want to stay isolated. You know, the other reason is we have amazing unemployment benefits that have been put into place. And it's caused some to say, well, you know, maybe I should take a break, right? So that causes a shortage. But the other thing is when you have the number of people aging at this tremendous rate that we have going on in our country, there's a definite shortage of caregivers, and it is the number one, look into the future, fastest growing profession out there where we're going to need these qualified caregivers. So now it's an issue, but for the future, it's a huge issue.
Let's go back and talk a little bit about when you and I were able to go into these communities and we would have these older adults sit there and listen. And really all I did is I went and kind of told my story, how I started this ministry. You know, you gifted everybody with a heart that they could hold. But let's talk about the power of touch that we saw when we went out. And we did a campaign called Hearts and Hugs where we gave out gratitude hearts and hugs. Let's just talk about that importance and the great things that we did see and hope to be back to soon.
Yeah, it was amazing. There's a number of scenarios that I'm recalling where people would kind of reluctantly come to the little heart party, the gratitude party, and wouldn't crack a smile or nod a head during the whole thing. And at the end of your beautiful message, you would have people that would automatically come up and hug, and you would say, that's what I want to do. This is Hearts and Hugs. And those people that were the most resistant got up and gave you the biggest hugs. But the other thing is they started sharing their stories with you. And I've been thinking about this a lot lately is we would go into these senior communities and hear these people, you know, at least had each other, right? They're not isolated at home without a caregiver. But what really struck me was how absolutely lonely they were there as it was. When you had, you know, people saying, I'm here, but I don't have a friend. None of these people are my friend, right? Remember that? And so you in your kindness promised to come back and see them, but you also let them see that these people in that room were or could be their friends. So there was some relationship building that went on with this gratitude, you know, exercise.
I think too that I have one community that I am allowed in, and I've been back probably about a month with masks and social distancing. And that's every Sunday we do a reflection. And something that I really realized was the difference in living in your own home for 50, 60 years, however long, you know, some of these folks were married, to going to a 1 or 2 bedroom apartment in these communities, and the anxiety and the change that they go through. And, you know, I've sat with several people recently that we just talk about that change, and we talk about what can we find in this to be grateful for. And usually it always comes back to their Bible and their photo album, because their photo album really truly is a small thing that they relive their life through. So I don't know, do you deal with older adults with anxiety or change problems, you know, adjusting to change?
Yeah, you know, even accepting a caregiver to come into their own homes is a lot of times a struggle. And but the beauty of it is once you have that caregiver that's gone a few times, they understand, oh, this is a good thing. You know, oh, I do like this, right? Yes, this is going to keep me at home longer. So I think it's that initial anxiety we see, but once we're in with the client and have that caregiver, they're happy. You know, they feel a little spoiled. They like it. But you know, going into the senior communities and witnessing that, it's how do you explain to them through this anxiety that being where they are at that point in their life, that's the best place for them to be. It's the safest place for them to be. How are you going to manage this huge house, right? But, you know, even with my in-home care business, knowing that aging in place, aging in your home is the most healthy, best thing you can do for your older adult, you got to be smart enough to know that there does come a time, and there may come a time, that you do have to look at alternative, you know, living places for them, because sometimes it can become unsafe. You know, even with two caregivers, sometimes it can become unsafe. So, you know, that's why I love going into these communities and spending time with the folks that are there, because they do have concerns. You know, the best choices were made for them.
What about Alzheimer's and dementia patients during this time? Do they require anything different than what we would normally do for them? Or um, I just know we're seeing more and more cases of that, but I don't know the aspect of care, and I just wondered with your own clients, does that require something different?
Well, when you have dementia, when you're older, right, you're going to accelerate that illness if you're alone. If you don't have somebody or something there helping to stimulate your mind a little bit more. I really hope, and this is like a false hope, a rhetorical hope, or whatever you want to call it, that there aren't people that have that Alzheimer's and that more advanced type of dementia that are alone right now and don't have anybody with them, because that's an exponential downhill spiral for them, and it's not safe. You know, I would love to go knock on every door that I know there's a potential for an older person, just to check on them and make sure that they're safe. And, you know, all of us live in, you know, neighborhoods and communities. And I just, you know, my plea has been, keep your eyes open for those elderly neighbors. Have you seen them recently? You know, is their garbage being taken out? You know, is their mail, you know, stacking up, or, you know, what are those telltale signs that something might be wrong? And you know, make sure they're okay. Make sure they're okay. And, you know, there's other things that we can do to help out our older adults during this time. You know, calling your senior center and seeing how you can help in any way that they need help. You know, Meals on Wheels has got to be busier than ever right now. So how can you not only donate the food, but maybe help deliver the food? So, you know, there's ways that we can, you know, do some outreach on our own to make sure that they're safe.
Well, and I want to thank you, because we did have some donations for some hearts, and you graciously agreed that if I gave you hearts, that you would make sure caregivers and clients would get those gratitude hearts, because, you know, right now is a difficult time. We can't hold big events where we can go in and share hearts, and every person that's willing to take 10 or 20 hearts to share them and give hope to someone. I know you believe in the hearts, and there is something very, very comforting about the hearts when you hold them. So I just want to personally thank you for being one of my crusaders out there, and sharing those with the people that you feel need them.
Yeah, these hearts and the messages you have in there, the power of something that could be so simple, but there's such a great story behind them, right? And I also think, especially now in the world, we're complaining a lot, right? We don't take the time to say what we're grateful for and to put a little heart next to your heart, right? And thank God for, gosh, we got up this morning. You know, that's in step one. But yeah, I wish everybody in this country and in this world could have a heart. Literally.
Me too. Me too. You know, the last order was for 1,000 hearts. I think I'm down to about 600. I got another 1,000 coming, and that's my whole thing. Is I just want people to know, you know, that God is never with us. He's there for you. I went through some bouts of anxiety during all this, and, you know, I try to be the most grateful person, but it happens. And, you know, I just grab my heart and I just, thank you, God. My husband has a job. My family's close. My parents are doing well. You know, thank you, thank you. Because when we focus on that gratitude, our spirits are lifted and we know we're going to be okay.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I have a caregiver who has a a lovely client, but he's advanced in his Alzheimer's. And so I said, can I have 10 minutes after your shift today to just spend a little time with you and talk about, a few things? And she's getting a heart today. And I'm just telling her how grateful I am that she's doing such a wonderful job with him. And, that goes a long way. It goes a long way.
It's a simple gesture with a genuine meaning. And I can't think of anybody that wouldn't want that kindness in today's world. And the things that you do are amazing. I think that's why you and I have partnered early in our meeting, because I know your heart and you know my heart, and it just seems to just really want to care for these older adults and let them know they're an important part of our community, and they're not tucked away from us. We do still think and pray for them, and I'm just so grateful that you and I have this partnership and that we took the time to talk today. Before we go, I know you've given us a lot of tips, but what is one thing that would mean the most to some of these people? Is it time for me to keep reaching out to these facilities to try to get us back in? Is it the little phone call that you said? What would just be the one thing you'd want people to take away and say, that's an easy thing and I'm going to do it?
I'd say for people that are living alone in their homes, follow the CDC guidelines and go visit them. And I was talking to Lori before, we do personal care assistance as well. So there's older adults that need help showering and toileting and dressing and all that. My hope and assumption is they already have caregivers and they're taking care of the COVID. The ones I'm worried about are the ones that need the companion care. So we can even stay 6 feet away. You can mask and glove and disinfect and stay 6 feet away. So, there's probably some people out there saying, no, we got to stay away from our older adults. Well, I don't want them dying of loneliness, of a filthy home, of, feeling that they're all by themselves at this time in their life. So take the guidelines and just put some eyes on your loved one.
I think that's awesome. That's really awesome. And I'm going to, when I post this, I'll put your contact information. So if someone has more questions or maybe wants to get more ideas of what they could do for their own family members, I know sometimes economics can be an issue, but I know that the care you do is worth 5 times what you charge. So I just want people to be able to reach out to you too. And Joanne, thank you for everything that you do for Grateful Gratitude and spreading our word and spreading our hearts.
Oh, thank you, Lori. It's been a blessing.
Well, until next time, and let's do this again. Let's get together again, maybe in 3 months, and let's compare and contrast, and let's see where we are then, so we can look back and say, remember when we talked about what we needed to do? Well, look what's happened and how great it's been.
Excellent.
Time.
Excellent.